Absolutely not. I think it has improved in the recent years, especially with Kenya passing on a new constitution, and people have become more aware of the need to have evidence-based policy. Initially, it was, at the whim of the politicians to make policy, roadside declarations of this is going to happen. But now, a lot of individuals, like we've actually, as Future Agricultures, we've run a couple of breakfast meetings with MPs who actually asked for it because they were saying they've got issues they want to discuss on the floor of the parliament, but they don't have the evidence for it. So they requested us to be organizing breakfast meetings for them and have the researchers come in and actually discuss with them the issues that are affecting the population, so that when they go and talk about the issues on parliament, they have something to back it up. So I think it has improved, and politicians are asking for it. It's because also they don't want to seem ignorant when they bring an issue to the floor of the parliament and then suddenly they don't have the evidence to back it up. So basically what that means is that there's room for improvement between the researchers and the politicians to get the policy right, because we need each other. They need us and we need them for us to be able to make evidence-based.
To a certain extent, it depends within which area, because in our country now, we are coming out of economic crisis. Now, most of our key economic ministries are relying on evidence to do policies now. It's running differently now. Yes, because for us to get out of where we are, we need evidence, definitely. Yes.
So that's used.
That's used. That's getting used. Even the budget. Previously, the government would come up with the budget without consulting the people. Now, evidence is being taken from the grassroots also. There's budget consultations now, which are taking place. Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's pretty early to make a judgment now, because we used to work in a regime where policymakers had their own researchers and they did not open up their hands to even young researchers or other who actually do research in universities or research institutes. They would rather have their own team that come up with the results that they like and they upload to. Now it's a bit different, but it's not very different, because research has a long-term impact, and I live in Egypt, and Egypt needs immediate as well as decisions now to be taken now to make things better. So I'm hoping that in the longer run this will change, but in the Middle East I don't think it's happening in at least the first 5 years.
We have been trying to do some work in partnership with one of our sister organizations, GINGS, Ghana Information Network for Knowledge Sharing, to bring together research scientists and policymakers, particularly parliamentarians. That has been very difficult because at one end the research scientists complain that they don't have access to the parliamentarians and all of that. The parliamentarians think that what the research scientists produce is so complex and so difficult that they are not able to understand, them. And so, yes, we have some professionals who are also in parliament at the forefront of policy making, and they already have their skills built and all of that. And so they try as much as possible to ensure that some amount of evidence, research work informs the policy decisions that they make. But this cannot be said for all of them. This cannot be said for all of them.
And is that a kind of small minority?
Part of the decisions rely on research, because before policymakers can go and make an announcement, they try to consult a few people who have done research, or within their ministries or outside the ministry, in order to arrive at a conclusion. But I must also admit that a good number of those decisions do not follow a scientifically derived, situation like a research.
Okay, thank you.
I think they do. I mean, I don't think one can just rely on the website. I think when we send out information in our newsletters, it makes it more easily accessible, and it's packaged in a way that maybe makes it more easily accessible. I can't really say if decision makers are using that information, whether they're using that information.
What about policymakers?
Policymakers, I mean, just in terms of this democracy and governance project, we did a sort of a little survey amongst our network, and there weren't that many. There was about, I think, 10% of the whole network were policymakers. So we don't really have that many policymakers. And I was also sort of wondering about who are the policymakers? What makes somebody a policy? I mean, there's a whole range of steps that people take to make a policy. So there's a researcher, that people who put together the documents, and the researchers, and there's a whole range of people that work towards making a policy. And I don't know if people would call themselves policymakers. So if our network have said, I'm not a policymaker, I'm a researcher, or I'm the director of an NGO, I'm wondering whether they might still be in some way involved in policy.
At the moment, I'm not in a position to say whether it's yes or no, because I haven't lived in Zambia for quite a long time now. But from just glancing, looking at the papers, it looks there are in some areas there are policies that are informed by research, but obviously in other areas it's not. It's more on populist kind of politics. I would love to see everything being done with that in mind. It's something that is happening, hopefully.
Well, I've indirect information on that from the researchers, and a lot of them complain, saying, well, if they had read my research, they would have come to a different decision. So I don't know whether that's frustration of the researcher or the politician not reading the research, but that's what I hear, not in all cases. So I'm not sure. I hear different opinions there.